Is anybody familiar with Kabbalah? One. Who doesn't know a word what Kabbalah is? Oh, good. Okay. All right. I'm waiting for everybody to come in. By the way, if you don't know me, my name is Nader Ghiam. It's very, very nice to have you guys here. And do you know what the topic of the tonight, I don't know if I call it class or just gathering. You know what we're going to talk about? No?
Rosh Hashanah?
Rosh Hashanah is part of it, sure. We know that we have, in Hebrew calendar, we have two Moedim, two New Year. One is in Passover and one is in Rosh Hashanah. And even though the month of Tishrei is the 7th month of the Hebrew calendar, but we count the year on Rosh Hashanah. So on this Rosh Hashanah, the year would be what? Does anybody know? What Hebrew?
The new one is 5778.
5778, 5,778 years. Now, is this 5,778, is it from the beginning, of the physical beginning of the world? No. Does anybody know what is the 5,778 refers to? Yes.
From Adam and Eve.
Adam and Eve. Is it? So when the Torah talks about that there were 7 days of the creation, one thing I like to make clear that those 7 days were not the 24 hours day that we are accustomed to. Because our calendar, the 24 hours day, is based on moon and the sun. But we know that the moon and the sun was created on the 4th day. So when the Torah talks about day and night, the first day, it clearly talks about different phenomenon than the physical day. So there were 7 consciousnesses. God created everything in a realm of 7. But then, according to Kabbalah, the 5,778 years refers to when man, or Adam, gained consciousness. There were other humans on earth, there were other creatures on earth, but nobody had the consciousness that Adam had. The consciousness of knowing God. Or it's way more than that. But that's not the topic of our tonight class. We want to know what next year is bringing for us. And the secret of knowing what kind of an energy we're going to receive starting actually 2 weeks from now. Rosh Hashanah is just 2 weeks from now. And each year brings its own energy. And how do Kabbalists figure out what form of energy we're going to have this year? It has to do with the number of the year. The 5778, it's Tafshin Ayin Chet. The 4 letters of Tafshin Ayin Chet. And there's a secret in these 4 letters. And by knowing the secret of these 4 letters, then the Kabbalists come up with the secret of this year. So what is so big deal about Tafshin Ayin Chet? The way the Kabbalists look at these 4 letters, it comes, I'm going to just make it easy for everybody to understand it. It comes to this sentence that The Hebrew meaning of it would be, may it be a year to connect to Etz HaChaim. The Ayin and the Het is Etz HaChaim. You know, does anybody know what Etz HaChaim is? The tree of life. What is tree of life? What is the tree of life? I'm sorry? Is it Torah? In Kabbalah, we call this combination of the Sefirot the tree of life. But if you want to search the term tree of life, Etz HaChaim, when it originated in the 7 days of the creation. It's interesting to know that the first day of the Rosh Hashanah is the birthday of Adam and Eve. So the world was created 6 days prior to Rosh Hashanah. So Rosh Hashanah is the birthday of Adam and Eve. That means it's your birthday, because we're all come from Adam and Eve. We're all sparks of the soul of Adam and Eve. So every year on Rosh Hashanah, we're all born. And on your birthday, we always get a gift. The gift that we receive from the life force, from the Creator, is an energy that comes this year. And the gift is the energy of Etz HaChaim, the tree of life. So we have to find out what is tree of life. And if you study Torah, the very first section of the Bereshit, the book of Genesis, talks about God telling Adam on the 6 days that you live in this beautiful place, heaven, and there are all kinds of trees. And he calls all the trees tree of life. And he says you could use the tree of life and use it. But there is a tree that you shouldn't use, you shouldn't eat from it, and that's the tree of Etzadat, which is the tree of good and bad. So there are 2 trees, literally. One tree called tree of life, and one called the tree of good and bad. Were they actually a physical tree? Or is just a metaphor of something that God wanted to tell Adam and Eve? But the interesting point is, as long as Adam and Eve didn't eat from the tree of good and bad, the tree of Etzadat, they had absolute control over everything in this world. Absolute control. They were in total fulfillment. There was no lack, there was no disease, there was no chaos. They ruled over everything. They even had no shame. They were naked. But their nakedness didn't cause any inconvenience for them. It says they weren't even shameful of being naked. So this is very important to understand what Etz HaChaim is. Apparently Etz HaChaim is this phenomenon, is this consciousness. I like to call it a consciousness. It's like God telling Adam and Eve, there are 2 consciousnesses because there is nothing but consciousness in this world. What rules us is our consciousness. Our physical being is bound by our consciousness. So God tells Adam and Eve, look, there are 2 consciousnesses in this world. There is one called tree of life, Etz HaChaim, and if you connect to that, you'll be perfect. You'll be untouchable. You can control everything. Adam named all the trees. Adam named all the flowers. Adam named all the animals, all the birds, all the fishes, everything. What do we mean Adam named everything? That means he was in absolute control of everything. All the animals, the beasts, they feared Adam. Adam didn't fear nothing. Adam wasn't worried about a thing. Adam and Eve, they were in such a state of perfection that nothing bothered them. There was no lack, nothing. Everything was just beautiful. They were in total control, no chaos. And then something happens. And they are listening to God, and they are connecting only to tree of life, and they don't even get close to the other consciousness, the tree of Etzadat. A tree that supposedly, once human being ate from it, tasted it, everything changed. So what happens? Comes along a snake. I call it another consciousness. I like to call snake another consciousness. That comes and creates doubt in Eve's conscious. What the snake told Eve, we all know. Don't worry, eat from the tree of good and bad. You'll be like God. And don't worry, you're not going to die. First, the snake asked Eve, why aren't you eating from this tree? And Eve says, God told us not to eat from it. And she even adds stuff to it. She says, God says, don't even touch it. But God never said that. She says, God says, don't touch it. I don't even come close to it. And if I eat, I may die. She totally changes what God told them to begin with. I'm kind of expanding it to understand that Torah is not a book of history. It should not be understood literally. The Torah needs to be studied carefully and to understand the secret behind every word, every letter. And then she eats from the tree. Nothing happens to her. Guess what? She doesn't die. And then she offers it to Adam. Adam eats from the tree, and the moment they eat, all of a sudden, they realize, oh, they're naked. And they were ashamed of it. And when God asked, what is the first question that God asked Adam? He says, where are you? What, God couldn't see where Adam is? Where are you? What kind of a question is this? He put them in the Garden of Eden. But he comes and says, where are you? Have you ever asked yourself, where am I? What's going on? Or somebody comes and tells you you're all distressed or consumed by a thought, and he says, where are you, man? It's like God comes and tells Adam, where are you? Where is your consciousness? What happened to you? And Adam, that before touching the tree of good and bad, was in total control, didn't blame nobody, he was in total control of himself. All of a sudden, he acts like a victim. He says, it wasn't my fault. Eve gave it to me. Eve gave it to me. So that's how the Torah talks about the consciousness behind the tree of life. Tonight I want to discuss two things with you guys. First, to understand what is the secret of tree of life. What does it mean that the next year is the year that we can connect? We'll have the merit to connect to this awesome consciousness, awesome energy. What difference is going to make for me if I know what year is it or is not? How can I benefit my life? We all live in this world and there is so much chaos going on. We have so many challenges. We all have difficult issues to deal with. Financial, relationship, health, God forbid. There's all kinds of challenge all over the world. What difference does it make for me if I know what this year is all about? And if I know what this year is all about, how can I use it to enhance my life? So there are two things that we need to understand. First of all, what is the consciousness of the tree of life? And second, how can I stay with the tree of life? What happened to Adam and Eve? Why did they fail? What happens? What caused their fall? Was it planned? Did they have anything? Could they control it? Could they stay away from it? Could they stay in Garden of Eden forever? Or it had to happen? Sometimes we fall, and we can't even figure out why we fall. Sometimes things happen beyond our control. We make mistakes when we think we're doing the right thing. Sometimes we fall because it's really not in our control. Things happen because of the government, because of the climate, because of the people, because of the society, and we fall, we make a mistake. Was that the same mistake that Adam and Eve did? What was their mistake? How could they stop it? And if the consciousness of the tree of life is going to manifest itself in 2 weeks for the whole year, can I stay with it? And how can I stay with it? The good news is that the energy of the 5778, the energy behind the tree of life, is going to be here. And the more you know about it, the chances are that you can connect to it strongly. If you know how to harness it, how to bring it to your life, and stay with it, then I can guarantee you, it's not just me guarantee you, all the Kabbalists guarantee you, you're going to have a year that you've never experienced in your life before. That doesn't mean you're not going to have challenges. That doesn't mean things are going to be easy. No, but then you know. It's just like when you want to go outside, you check the temperature to see, is it warm, is it cold, is it raining? And you're ready for it. If you know it's a rainy day, you take an umbrella, you put on a jacket, and you're safe and sound. If you don't know what's going on, then you're probably going to get wet. God forbid, you might get even sick. So, and knowing is the connection. It says, Adam knew Eve, Eve became pregnant. By knowing Eve, she became pregnant. There was no physical relationship? Of course there was. So why Torah tells us Adam knew Eve and Eve became pregnant? Because knowing is the connection. So let's go back before they touched the tree of good and bad. When they were connected only to the tree of life. They were in absolute control of their life. Nothing bothered them. There was no lack. They were in a state of harmony. They loved each other. They weren't even shameful of how they looked. They didn't care how they look. They didn't care what people talk about them. They didn't care what the animal looked at them. When they were ashamed of what? It was just the two of them. So something happened. And who is this snake? Why God put the snake in the Garden of Eden? What was the role of the snake? Who is this snake? Who is the snake in my life? And why do we fall to the snake? Can I control the snake in my life? Who is the snake in my life?
It's the devil.
Who is the devil in my life? Good question. Okay. Any question so far? So, what is tree of life to you then? What is tree of life? What do you want in your life?
It's a desire. It's like a desire.
It's a desire of wanting what?
Something that's authentic that you're not conforming to.
Okay.
It's not just something. Sounds like what you're talking about.
learned that when they connected to this, whatever it is, this consciousness, this energy, they were in absolute control. Absolute control. No problem, no chaos. Is that possible? It's not possible. Why is it not possible? They were in control. Are you in control of your life? To some aspect you are, some aspect we're not. So we're not in control all the time. That's why they call it the tree of good and bad. Because some days are good, some days are bad. Some days I'm happy, some days I'm not happy. Some days challenges are easy to handle, sometimes it seems beyond our control. So tree of life is this life force, is this energy that we all seek, We all want fulfillment. We all want peace of mind. We all want financial support. We all want not to worry about people, not to worry about anything. I don't want to be a victim. I don't want to be shameful. I don't want to be scared. We're scared of wild beasts. We weren't then. What happened? What happened? All right, let me give you a little bit more details of what really happened on the sixth day of creation. It was all about them having a sexual relationship. The apple, the grape, the pomegranate, it's all metaphors. Adam and Eve, they were born on the 6 days, on Friday. Just a few hours before Shabbat. Just a few hours before Shabbat. And God tells them, don't do anything, don't come close to each other until Shabbat, when everything is perfect. Just hold on, just wait. And if you do that, if you control your emotion, if you control your feeling, everything is going to be fine. You could get as close as you want, do whatever you want to do when Shabbat comes. Just wait. You know how long they had to wait? 6 hours. 6 hours. They only needed to wait for 6 hours for the Shabbat to come. But they didn't have the patience. They couldn't hold on. They fell in love and they had sex. Another time in our history, when we experienced the revelation of the Mount Sinai, when we received the light force of God, when we were all at the bottom of the Mount Sinai, and we received the light force of the Torah, Moshe told us that he's going to come down in about 40 days and meet us at the bottom of the Mount Sinai. So we waited for Moshe. You know how long? Almost 40 days. 6 hours before the 40 days was about to finish, people became impatient. They couldn't wait. They wanted a leader. They lost their certainty about Moshe. They made a mistake. They fell 6 hours, and we lost it all. We created what we call the golden calf. So, to make it really short and sweet, Adam and Eve failed to apply restriction in their work. Restriction, just to wait. And that's the whole secret of our life. We fail to restrict. We fail to wait. And when we don't wait, we become what? We become reactive people. We become reactive people. We are all reactive people. We react to everything. Somebody tells us something, we want to immediately answer back. We're all reactive. I'm going to read a few points of how Kabbalah defines reactive behavior. When we worry about things, we're reactive. Because Adam and Eve didn't worry about anything before they touched the tree of good and bad. When we have doubt, we're considered to be reactive people. When we complain, we are reactive people. When we argue in the sake of being right, we're reactive. When we try to prove our point, we are reactive. When we stay in our comfort zone, we are reactive people. When we look for validation, we are reactive people. When we try to fix our problem right away, now, we're reactive people. When we try to fix our reputation right away, we are reactive people. When we fall in love too quickly, we're reactive people. When we break up too quickly, we're reactive people. When we want to please people, we are reactive people. When we take care of ourselves first, we're reactive people. When we get angry for all the good reasons, when you get angry for all the good reasons, not the bad reason, for all the good reasons, you're a reactive person. When we want things to happen our way, we're reactive people. When we always have an answer for everything, we want to have an answer for everything, we're reactive people. When we want to fix people's problem, we're reactive people. When we want to celebrate for everything that we accomplish, immediately want to celebrate for everything that we accomplish, we're reactive people. When we fall into sadness, when bad thing happens, we're reactive people. When we spend too much time on Facebook, we're reactive people. If you're still keeping the old phone numbers of your girlfriend and boyfriends, you're still keeping them, you're a reactive person. Are we all reactive? We're all reactive, right? But don't be disappointed. Don't be disappointed. In order to be proactive is to recognize our reactive behavior. God is proactive. You cannot do anything to bother God. God doesn't get disappointed at you. God has a plan, and His plan is happening according to what He set forward from the day one. God doesn't become sad. God doesn't say, you know, these people are so bad, tomorrow I'm going to ask sun not to rise. He doesn't do that. He's a proactive person. He's a proactive energy force. When we take responsibility of the things that happens in our life, we are proactive people. When we look at the challenges as opportunities, we are proactive people. I love this. You know, people come and tell me, بدبخت شدم. نمیدونی چه سختی هایی اومده تو زندگی. You don't know what happened to me. از در دیوار problem میاد. I'm bombarded by problem. I used to not call problem. I start telling people, it's not a problem, you have a challenge in your life. And I've been saying challenge all this time to make things, to change people's consciousness of not looking at things as problems, but as challenges. And tonight I want to even change that. I don't want to call them challenges, I want to call them opportunities. Opportunities, because everything that happens in your life, everything that happens to you, happens for a very, very good reason. And it happens for you to improve your life, to improve your consciousness, to improve the reason you are in this world. Adam and Eve, they fell. They became reactive. She became reactive, he became reactive. All of a sudden, their reactivity stole the show from them. But you know what? They had no choice. It was already written. It was already written. We know that the Torah was written before anything came about. God created Torah before he created everything else. He wrote the whole book. He wrote everything. He wrote everything down. Everything was already planned. So Adam and Eve would fall. Just like me and you, we fall. We become reactive. Because of everything, the whole list that I went through, and we could make a 10,000 page of reasons we become reactive. Every time we are too happy, we're reactive. Every time we are too sad, we are reactive. Every time we get annoyed, we're reactive. Every time we look at difficulties as challenges, now even challenges, we're reactive. Unless I come to a place when I know everything's an opportunity. Unless I come to a place that when I fall is my opportunity to rise, to create something. Because the only way to create light is if there is a darkness. If there is no darkness, you cannot create light. Unless there is a darkness, then there is an opportunity for you to create light. So it has to be. We will fall no matter what. You know, when you learn Kabbalah, when you understand this, don't think you're not going to fall anymore. Don't think that I didn't make a mistake today. I made a mistake. I make a mistake all the time. All the time. But the point of understanding Kabbalah, to understanding what this next year is going to bring, is that I recognize the opportunity. Recognizing it. How do you recognize opportunities? By applying restriction. By applying restriction. What do I mean by that? Something happens to me, before I react, before I make a move, before I make a decision, I'll wait a second. Just wait a second. Why this is happening to me? Why this is in my life? Because the only reason God gives you everything is to provide you with an opportunity. Provide you with an opportunity. And the better you are, the harder the opportunity. The more difficult the challenge, the bigger the reward. It only shows how good you are. So in order to connect to the tree of life, because it's going to show itself in 2 weeks for the whole year, this concept of having joy all the time, being absolutely happy, being absolutely in control, is going to roll in 2 weeks. is there for you unless you stay as reactive as you are tonight. This gift comes in a form of challenge. Next year could be, there's going to be so many challenges for the whole world and for every one of us. Full of challenges. But when I observe these challenges as opportunities for me to grow, for me to change, because this is the year of change for every one of us. I don't want to be a reactive person anymore. I want to be a proactive person. I want to be in control of my life. I want to be the best I can be. I want to be happy all the time. So the moment something happens that makes me reactive, and I'm willing to make a copy of everything that I wrote down as a reactive behavior, and you could even add more to it, and maybe we should. To realize that moment, take a look at it, step back. What is there for me? How should I react? How should I confront? How should I answer? How should I approach it? And the moment you restrict, the moment you push back yourself, the moment you pause, Adam and Eve didn't pause, they didn't wait. The temptation was so high, they didn't restrict. They were ashamed of themselves because they fell. So restriction probably is the biggest tool, the most important tool in any spirituality, especially in Kabbalah. My master, Rabbi Berg, had this example of how restriction works. It's a simple example, and I'm gonna, probably some of you guys have heard it, but I'm gonna repeat it again because it's such a good example. There is always two different energies. It's a chaim and sadat, positive force, negative force. And by handling these two different identity, we can create light. In order to create light, you need the two sides. You need to have both the tree of life and the tree of Etzalat. If you look at the lamp, the example that my master Rabbi Berg used says, if you look at the lamp, there is a positive pole in a lamp and a negative pole. Right? The negative pole in a lamp, its character is to draw everything to himself. It's a negative force, it draws everything. It's just like a vessel, just like every one of us. We want health, happiness, we want money, we want a good relationship, we want food, we want clothes, we want. We are that negative pole, that we want everything. And against this negative pole, there is a positive pole, the light force. God, Creator, whatever you want to name Him. And He wants to give you everything. He wants to give you all the money, all the happiness, all the fulfillment, everything that you need. He wants to give it to you. But do you know what happens to a lamp if you put the positive pole and the negative pole together? Short circuit. Short circuit. You see a huge flash, and then the lamp burns. How do the light becomes? How do the bulb create the light? When you put the third filament between the two, the resistor. And the stronger the resistor, the more light those two poles can create. A difference between a 6-volt lamp and a 20-volt lamp doesn't have to do anything with the positive pole and a negative pole. It has to do with the element of restriction. The more you restrict, the more you receive. The more you restrict, the more light you create. So the terms of as above, so below works in this situation. That means at every moment of your life, God wants to give you everything. He wants you to have it all. Have it all, everything. the best of the best. And you have a desire for everything. We all have a desire, we want it all. But if I don't exercise restriction, resistance, patience, difficulties, working hard, going against our comfort zone, if we apply all that, then we create light. Otherwise, it burns us. That's how we die. The more you push back, the more you wait, the harder you work, the more understanding you should have, the more patience you should have, the more time you put on yourself to improve yourself, you create more light. You make a better energy for yourself. So the year of 5778 is the year of tree of life. The opportunity is there for us to have it all. But the challenge is that the snake is going to come in and it's going to tell you, it's not your fault. It's your neighbor. Poor you. It wasn't your fault. You didn't do it. People badmouthing you. This guy destroyed your life. It's the government. Oh, they didn't treat you good. You're not good enough. You can't make it. What if? The doubt. All these are the acts of the snake who can totally prohibit you to connect to stay with the tree of life. More than any other times in history, this energy is available on Rosh Hashanah, on your birthday. On your birthday. 2 weeks from now, Wednesday night, when you connect to the Rosh Hashanah, and when you go to the synagogue, hopefully, and you listen to the blowing of the shofar. You know how many blowing of the shofar we have?
113.
I'm sorry?
613.
101. 101 blowing of the shofar. 101 blowing of the shofar. What is this 101? Yes?
Dalmatians.
Dimensions. You are right. You said dimension.
Dalmatian.
All right.
No pun intended.
No. You see, as I told you, this picture of the 10 Sefirot represents the tree of life. There are 10 Sefirot, there are 10 energy consciousness. When God wanted to send its light to us, He didn't send it in a big form. He sent it in a transform, through a transformer so we can receive it. So you see behind me there are 10 Sefirot. This tree has 10 branches. It's Keter, Chochmah, Binah, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzah, Hod, Yesod, and Malchut. And each Sefirot contains another 10 Sefirot in it. So 10 times 10 is what? 100. So when we blow the 100th shofar, we're covering up this whole tree of life. But we do 101 because we want to go beyond, above the 10 Sefirot. You want to own it. You want to control it. It's like the extra mile. The last blowing is extra mile. So one form of meditation on Rosh Hashanah is as they are blowing the shofar, which the sounds are, there are three different sounds. This is beyond tonight's class. There is Tekiah, Teruah, and Shevarim. And if you join us here, we'll announce it so we know exactly what we're doing. You break down all the barriers that causes you to be reactive. I have to share something with you personally. Before I studied Kabbalah, when I used to read the Torah, especially the English translation, or worse, the Farsi translation, I would get so disappointed. It didn't make sense now to me. It didn't make sense. And then when I used to come to synagogue, when I used to go to college, I used to bring my own book that I had to study. And I would sit and I would put my notes between my Siddur or Chumash, and I would act as I'm listening and I would do my study. I wanted to make my dad happy. I didn't like to go to synagogue because it didn't make sense to me. I would tell myself, why God needs my prayer? Doesn't He know what I want? Why should I go and say the prayer? I had no idea what blowing of the shofar is all about. At one point, I remember my mom used to tell, go and listen at least to one blowing of the shofar. And then I would stay in the Knesset, and after one blowing, I couldn't wait to get out. Because I had no idea what it was about. But after learning Kabbalah, I love Rosh Hashanah. I love the whole process of the tefillah that lasts so long. My most joyful day is Yom Kippur, believe it or not. I love it. Because I get to know the energies that are around me. Knowing is the connection. By you knowing what's ahead the next year, the energy of Etz HaChaim, the energy of life, that is there for you. And all you have to do is, every time something happens to you that disturbs you, saddens you, or even make you happy, just pause a little bit. Just pause a little bit, just wait. Don't react. When you're driving and you have to get to your meeting, and all of a sudden this old lady comes in front of you and drives 20 miles per hour, and you just pause. And instead of getting angry, you say, maybe it's better for me not to make it. Maybe I shouldn't be at a certain place at such time. She's an angel in my life. That's how you apply restriction. You change yourself. You understand that every challenge is an opportunity. Every challenge. All the details of your life, all the challenges that you go through, as detailed as is possible, it's all designed for you, for one purpose only. And you could be either reactive and lose it all, or proactive, have it all. My hope is that you choose to become a proactive person. To understand that is good for me. No matter how difficult it is, no matter how painful it is. You know, when we go to the gym, simple example, and you work out and it's painful, you know it's good for you, so you do it. It doesn't bother you, because you know it's good for you. Even though it's painful, you know it's good for you, and you do it. And the more you restrict, the harder you work on yourself, you become a better physical athlete or whatever. Or when you know you need to take a test, and it's going through the test, then you become successful. Sorry guys. That's being proactive. Understanding that you cannot accomplish everything overnight. Everything takes time. Everything takes time. It's with patience, with understanding, with patience, with exercising patience. Any question? So what is tree of life now? It's a state of consciousness. It's a state of being proactive. When you're proactive, you connect to the tree of life. And if you react to everything in your life, if you want to answer people, please people, get sad, get too happy, no patience, comfort zone, all about me, then you're not connected to the tree of life. You're a reactive person and you miss all the boats. We are meant to be happy 24/7. This world is designed for you to be happy 24/7. And only by practicing proactivity you can accomplish that. I want to give you guys an example to work to make this as practical as possible. Yes?
So you said you asked who are the snakes in your life. I'm just wondering if you can expand on that and like tell us a little bit more about
One more time, louder.
you asked about like who are the snakes
Yes.
like in your life.
Yes.
So can you expand on that and maybe tell us a little bit more about like what that means?
Right. Very good question. Who is the snake in your life?
Your ego.
The ego. Which part of ego?
Negative.
The reactive part of the ego. The reactivity is the snake, which is within us. It's not outside of us. It's part of our consciousness. It's part of our consciousness that wants us to stay in our comfort zone. Who doesn't want the challenges? Who doesn't want to go through the hard work? Who loves to be a victim sometimes? Who loves to play with their people? That's the snake. The snake came and asked Eve. The snakes create doubt. The part in you that creates doubt. And what is doubt? What is doubt?
Reaction.
I'm sorry?
Reaction.
Reactivity, but lack of faith. Of faith in what?
In God.
That it's opportunities. When a situation happens and you fail to see that it's an opportunity, it's doubt. You know, it says in the Torah that we have one enemy that is going to be with us until the end of days. There is this nation. It's called the nation of Amalek. Have you heard? Have you heard in the Torah? You know, the Jews, when we left Egypt, when we went through the Red Sea, we passed the Red Sea, and we had Moses with us, and Aaron with us, and Miriam with us. All of a sudden, people ask themselves, is God with us? And that was the doubt. And at that moment, it says in the Torah that the nation of Amalek attacked the Jews. And it's mentioned a few times in the Torah that don't forget, you have an enemy. You have only one enemy. We have only one enemy, and the enemy is within us, it's not outside of us. And that enemy is the doubt. The doubt that this is not the work of God. The doubt that this is not good for me. The doubt that this can't be from God. I don't want this. This is not easy. This shouldn't be. When we argue with God, when we don't like God's plan, the doubt. And doubt makes us reactive. The reactivity is the byproduct of not having certainty. When I have absolute certainty, that everything that comes to me is directly designed and produced by the life force of God, why worry? Why worry? Why shame? Why be afraid of falling? It's only the doubt that causes us to fall and stay in the what? Any question? Yes,
I'm finding a distinction between having been encouraged in my Jewish study to struggle with God, like Israel is specifically struggling with God, and so Judaism actually encourages you to ask questions and to be inquisitive and to really struggle with the concepts. Don't just blindly accept them, really struggle.
Yes.
So in a sense, it's almost saying embrace whatever doubt you might have for the sake of the new wisdom or knowledge. But I also understand from my Kabbalah teaching, absolute certainty in God's just order
Yes.
is to our benefit. So how do those two things coexist?
Good question. Absolute certainty doesn't mean being passive at all. Restriction doesn't mean being passive. When we say just wait a second, that doesn't mean don't do anything about it. Sometimes I need to confront somebody, right? Somebody says something to me and it's not nice, and I need to let him know that what he or she said is not nice, is not right. But if I don't apply the restriction, I'm not saying being passive and let it go, push it back and never do anything about it. No, that's not the restriction. The restriction is, I'll wait a second until I control my emotion, until I'm not under the control of my anger. I want to confront him coming from the side of love, not the side of hate, not the side of ego. Then I confront it proactively. So, exercising restriction and having certainty, that doesn't mean being passive or accepting everything that comes to you. In Kabbalah, we learn to ask. You have to ask. You have to learn more and more and more and more. Having certainty in knowing that I can learn more and more and more. That, in the same situation, people who bluntly accept everything, they're reactive people. If everything that I tell you tonight, you take it to your heart, you're a reactive person, people. How do you become proactive after tonight's class? If you only exercise it for yourself. Don't believe a word that I said tonight, because if you believe everything that I said tonight, you're reactive. But if you take it home and you apply the restriction, you apply the concept of certainty, you apply the understanding that everything is from Him, then you're proactive. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't, as a Jew, as an Israelite, we need to understand God more and more and more. By being proactive, we can understand God. The fear of God that is mentioned in the Torah, it's not, oh my God, it's God. It's, oh my God, that's God. The awe. A proactive person understands the presence of God and is in awe of God. A reactive person is scared the hell out of God. So afraid. And that's not what Kabbalah is. In Kabbalah, we learn to love God, knowing that He is all good. Good question. Any other question? No, we're good? Thank you very much.